Hello, Michelle and the rest of my colleagues at Raptor Consulting. My name is Samantha Wilson and I will be presenting the topic of working from home. I selected this topic because not only is it relevant in today's workplaces, I had firsthand experience at it last year when the pandemic hit. I was sent to work from home indefinitely. Going from being in the office 5 days a week to setting up a home office was a drastic change both in positive and negative ways. Prior to the shift to working from home, I had a 1-hour commute each way to work, which accounted for 10 hours of lost time each week. I worked from home in a household with 7 others, and it was very difficult to find 6 workspaces, all separate from each other, and where the distractions would be limited. In addition to my personal experiences with working from home, the number of people working from home in the past year has seen a major increase. On to the next slide. Do you know anyone that has or still works from home? Or do you have a firsthand experience of working from home? On to the next slide. If you answered yes to either of those questions, what is the reason that you are or that the person you know is working from home? Usually people working from home fall into one of the 2 categories seen on this slide. On to the next slide. In this presentation, I will review the facts about working from home, provide a brief introduction into the topic. I will then look into the effects that employers and organizations feel, the employee attitudes toward working from home, and the effects that employees will follow that. I will then provide productivity tips for working from home, followed by the conclusion, recommendations, and references. On to the next slide. In a survey completed by Stats Canada in 2020, it was found that 4.7 million Canadians who did not previously work from home are now working from home as a result of the pandemic. And after COVID-19 hit in March of 2020, 88% of business organizations made it mandatory to work from home. On to the next slide. By organizations having their employees work from home rather than being in the typical office setting, the entire organizational culture was affected. The information provided in this presentation should allow organizations to make an informed decision about whether they allow their employees to work from home. Next slide, slide 7. There are various effects seen by employers and organizations when their employees move from the office to working within their home. Next slide. The advantages for employers having their staff at home include both a cost savings and less time wasted by employees. Employers can see a cut in their expenses as they no longer need to pay for a physical space for the employees to work in. There will be less time wasted by employees having the water cooler type conversations, which will result in a higher productivity for the organization. The disadvantages associated with employees working from home from an employer perspective include improper setup. Employee motivation is also a negative effect that can be seen, as there are various distractions at home that could prevent employees from completing their work. Another disadvantage is organizational culture. Employers need to make a conscious effort to uphold company culture since the ease of communication is no longer prevalent. Knowledge sharing is also a disadvantage because communication requires more effort. And finally, the last downfall for employers is setup costs. If employees are working both in the office and from home, they require 2 different workstations. On to the next slide. Next, we will review employee attitudes toward working from home. Next slide. Slide 10. The overall attitude of employees regarding working from home is mostly positive. Employees feel that although they are working more hours, they are prepared to complete the work. Employees in this study also felt as though they were able to develop and maintain stronger coworker relationships. Also, as a benefit to the employer, employees felt as though they were completing more work when they were at home. On to the next slide. Based on the employees' attitudes discussed, it is evident that working from home affects not only the employer, but also the employee. Next slide. The positive effects that can be felt by employees are environmental impact, more flexibility and freedom, and they no longer need to travel for work. Therefore, less money is spent on gas. Employees also have more flexibility as they can work from home wherever they like to, not just within the comfort of their own home if there's Wi-Fi. And work-life balance can also be a positive and a negative effect, as many employees may not stay disciplined in their work. The other disadvantages associated with employees working from home is that they will have less social interaction with one another, which could lead to feeling isolated, therefore decreased work motivation also. And employees can also incur costs as a result of working from home, which could be any of the utilities such as internet, electricity, anything required to work from home. On to the next slide. It is evident that productivity can be an issue for employees working from home. I have chosen to include some tips for employees and employers which will encourage employees to stay focused and on track. You may watch the video attached for a summary of the tips for productivity. On to the next slide. In conclusion, it is clear that the number of organizations that have sent their employees home to work has increased significantly since the pandemic hit last year. There are various benefits and negative effects that are felt by both employers, employees, and the organization as a whole. Although employees enjoy working from home, it is up to the employer to make the final decision on whether employees work from home. Next slide. Although the concept of working from home presents many benefits and challenges for employees and employers, I would recommend that employers do not allow their employees to work from home 100% of the time. I'm making this recommendation that employees should work from within the office when the workplace is operating under normal circumstances, such as not in a worldwide pandemic, as it's harmful to the culture of the workplace. Employees need to take into account the setup costs associated with having employees working from home and also the strain that is felt on the communication. There is a difficulty to motivate employees from a distance, which is the greatest impact that can be felt by these organizations. Next slide. So slides 16, 17, and 18 are basically reference pages of the material that I used in my presentations, so you may skip through these and navigate to the last slide, slide 19. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen and analyze the information that I presented in this visual presentation. Should you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. My email is listed there, and you should receive a response back in 24 hours. Thank you so much again, and have a great day.